Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Things are rough out there. XRP price dropped as low as $2.27 today. Now, according to some analysts, things might get worse before they get better. And in a video just yesterday, I warned that multiple chart analysts were warning of a drop in the crypto market, and XRP specifically, and that certainly has happened. But the good news is that nothing has happened that has broken the charts. The big picture remains, and and the bull market almost certainly has not peaked. I don't believe it's peaked. I personally don't. Certainly not. And that's the message that I continue to see from chart analysts that I follow. If we were entering a bear market now, it would look different from previous bear markets in scale. Given that we didn't have a euphoric blow-off top for Bitcoin and certainly altcoins. There was no alt season, right? Well, I gotta ask, why would we have like a 70%, 80%, or a 90% pullback from here, even if we were entering a bear market? It just doesn't make sense to believe that would be remotely probable. You see, the reason we've seen pullbacks of that scale in previous market cycles is because markets got way too hot. It absolutely into bubble territory. And so, of course, as a result of that, major corrections were needed as a result. But that simply hasn't happened. It hasn't happened this time. It just flatly has not. So I would say, even if we're entering a bear market, which again, I do not believe is the case, and I'm steadfast in that. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that's my belief. If we're entering a bear market, it would be far less pronounced than anything that we've seen in a previous cycle, than anything we've seen before. So we'll run through this, but before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say are right. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. As I record this video, it is 10:41 p.m. Central Time, Monday, November 3rd, 2025. XRP is $2.34, and again, that 24-hour low, which I cited, $2.27 earlier today. And of course, to be clear, this of course was not something XRP specific. This is the entire crypto asset class on a global scale taken in the shorts. Major pullback. Well, it's relative. I say major. I mean, if you look at the percentages, let me look at this. What are we talking about here? XRP is down less than 4% over the last 24 hours. It was a little bit worse than obviously when it was at its, but look, it is a sea of red, and it's scaring people. People are already scared before today, so then even to see something like this, yeah, people are continuing to be to be terrified here. But yeah, so Bitcoin went down too. The whole asset class did. It's currently at $106,933. But look at that 24-hour low for Bitcoin. This is scaring people. 24-hour low of $105,534. I just got to tell you, as somebody that held Bitcoin when it was as low as about $3,200, this doesn't even seem like real life to me. Like, we're terrified. I was holding Bitcoin at $3,200. And I'm making a YouTube video in 2025 noting that people are afraid because Bitcoin has fallen to $105,534. I held XRP at 10 cents, right? I held XRP at 10 cents, watched it run to $3.65 this summer with the rest of you, and now I'm making a video in 2025 talking about people being terrified because XRP fell to $2.27 today. Man. Have some perspective, folks. That's all I'm saying here. Take a look at this post from Ryan Dietrich. He's the chief market strategist at Carson Group. And he shared this data. The slingshot says, don't sleep on 2026. He says the S&P 500 was down more than 15% year to date in April, but will likely close up double digits. And I'll pause to just note, I'll toot my own horn a little bit, as as everything plunged into chaos and it was the end of the world in April. I insisted that it actually wasn't. That was the initial round of tariff fears. You may recall, I think it was maybe like April 7th, I think was the actual bottom, I want to say. Just pulling from memory. But it wasn't. Of course it wasn't. And now we're up dramatically. And the reason that I'm even highlighting this, by the way, is because the crypto asset class moves in tandem. If you zoom out on a chart far enough, not that you have to zoom out that far, you can clearly see it because stocks are risk on assets and so is crypto. So if there's a risk on appetite from investors, it's going to be the case on the whole for both asset classes. And so if you zoom in, yeah, if you go look down to like the minute, the day, the week, the month, it wouldn't necessarily always perfectly correlate, but yeah, the correlation exists. And it always has. But check this out. And this absolutely plays into the thesis of Raoul Pal and Julian Biddle and TechDev, who are insisting that what's most probable is that this bull market's going to extend into 2026, and it'll peak with euphoria in either Q1 or Q2 of next year. Well, based on historic precedent, if history is to rhyme with itself, yeah, you should expect stocks to be higher. And again, if the crypto asset class continues to move in tandem, which it always has, yeah, that actually kind of lines up. And so he wrote here, 2025 will join 1982, 2009, and 2020 as the only other years to do this, which is to say to have pulled back, that to that degree. In this case, this year 15%, but then to close up double digits. So it was down double digits and then it closed up double digits. I mean, assuming 2025 does close, I'd be shocked if it didn't. You need a black swan event to change that. And so he says, turns out slingshots are quite powerful as the next year has been up double digits every single time. And folks, it's been up double digits every single time dating back to 1950. So unless this time is different, 2026 is going to be pretty damn green. So if that's the case, what do you think that means for crypto, which hasn't peaked yet? This is why I've been talking about Raoul Pal's thesis so frequently lately. It's because the more time passes, the more obvious it is that either we're entering a ridiculous bear market right now, or he's probably right. Like, that's where we're at right now. It's one or the other. Here's a post from on-chain analytics firm Swissblock. Bitcoin, what is the plan? It's been 180 days since Bitcoin broke above $100,000, and it hasn't closed below it once. The $100,000 zone is the point of break, a structural floor built on high volume and strong confluence. This is what November brings. Hold $100,000, and the bulls reset for another leg higher. Lose it, and there's nothing below, just open air and fear. Okay, so that last bit, that is in line with what I've actually seen from lots of analysts. Like, there really is, there's no reasonable third option. We're not just going to hang around here moving sideways. Either we're about to enter some serious bear territory, or this market's going to rip higher. And so, I mean, fine, there are some analysts that say, yeah, you can go a bit lower without structurally breaking anything, and I'll let the chart analysts argue amongst themselves as far as what those levels are. I mean, I do see some of that, but I'm just saying, there are a lot of comments is like, one of these two things is about to happen. So we're going to find out together. And I've always just argued, even if we do go lower, I'm just not of the mindset that this thing's over. And I will remind you guys that CoinMarketCap tracks 30 different cycle top indicators. I don't have it pulled up for this video. I just popped in my head, so I thought I'd mention it. But CoinMarketCap tracks 30 different metrics, which are cycle top indicators. 0 out of 30 of those metrics have triggered. So either we're not entering a bear market, or if we are, every single one of those metrics broke. For the first time ever, they're no longer reliable. All of them triggered in previous cycles, but now none of them? And it's just over? Okay, I don't think that's probable. I mean, sometimes the improbable happens, but I ain't going to count on that. Here's a post from on-chain analytics firm Santiment. Despite Bitcoin's market value dropping 14% since its all-time high back on October 6th, an encouraging sign is that the fact that Bitcoin is generally staying off of exchanges. Overall, when a coin supply is not moving to exchanges, the risk of further sell-offs are limited. There are 208,980 less total Bitcoin on exchanges compared to 6 months ago. There is 1.08% less total Bitcoin available supply on exchanges compared to 6 months ago. So that's interesting. So, it doesn't mean price can't go down, but it's just like, how devastating do you think this is going to get? There's a lot of people, that's a vote of confidence. When Bitcoin is moving off exchange, that's a vote of confidence. So people are like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be selling this anytime soon. And within the last week, I made a video highlighting data proving that the same thing was happening for XRP. So it doesn't mean markets can't go lower. It doesn't mean that there's nobody to sell. But those are some big numbers, folks. Here's a post from chart analyst Crypto Wizard. He's talking about Bitcoin here. He says, still in sync. At $115,497, I warned that if it keeps following, there may be one final pullback. And that was October 27th. He was warning this. He says, since then, Bitcoin has declined by over $10,000, 8.82%, and panic is spreading. Follow the plan. Once support found, expect a bounce. And he posted that this afternoon. So he's one of the analysts that did think there was a pretty reasonable chance you're going to see a sizable pullback. And this is of note, you know. And this is all normal volatility in crypto as far as he's concerned. He thinks that this market's going way higher. Again, out of all of the analysts that I follow, everybody except one says nothing is broken on a higher time frame, just meaning big picture. The charts are not broken. There's nothing devastating that should change the bullish outlook. So are they all wrong? I mean, I doubt it. We'll see here. Here's a post from chart analyst Credible Crypto. He says, Bitcoin still at the same levels it was at when I left. So I think he went on vacation or left home for a while or something. That's what he's referencing there. And by the way, this post is from this afternoon, 12:04 p.m. So it says, Bitcoin's still at the same levels it was at when I left, but the mood after a quick glance at the timeline seems 10 times worse. Nothing has changed, though. Bitcoin is still bullish AF on higher time frame. Anyone telling you differently is looking at the wrong chart and or trying to preemptively call the top for the 16th time this cycle. Maybe this time is different and they will finally be right, but nothing that I am seeing actually suggests that by any means at all, in my opinion. Yeah, and I will also note that he has cited today in separate posts that, frankly, Bitcoin could go all the way down to $74,000 and that would not break market structure in his opinion. So there's all that. And look, I know that seems wild to you, especially if you're brand new to crypto. It's going to sound, you're telling me you can go that type of percentage. And the answer is yes, that would be within historical norms. To see those types of swings, not that it has to go down, that he's not predicting that Bitcoin will go to $74,000. He's just saying that's how far away from we are from getting to a point where we should really be panicking. That's I think that's a broad point that he's making there. This is normal in crypto. It's also, like XRP, the way it's behaving here, historically normal. There's nothing weird about this. It's just moving in tandem with the rest of the crypto market. XRP has never had stronger fundamentals in its entire 13-plus year history. It just doesn't make sense to be fearful here. Then there's also this. This is from Mikey Bull Crypto. Bitcoin tightest Bollinger Bands. It says a massive move usually follows this exactly the level where sentiment is critically ugly. And so here's another analyst noting that Bitcoin Bollinger Bands are the tightest in history. And we talked about this all throughout 2024 with XRP Bollinger Bands, that metric tightest in history. That indicates that you're going to see a burst because you see an increasingly narrow range of volatility. Eventually, that thing's going to burst one way or the other. Now, the metric doesn't tell you if that way is up or down. So if we're actually entering a bear market, maybe you do see a ridiculous crash to the downside. But if we're not, wouldn't you expect there to be a massive rip to the upside? And that's what happened with XRP last year. That's for damn sure. Here's a post from somebody named Alan who wrote to chart analyst Bobby A. This is October 30th, by the way. He said, have you given up on XRP? Now, the reason that he was asking that is because for a number of, I don't know, maybe like 10 days or so leading up to that, Bobby A., he was like, to his credit, one of the first that was warning that in the short term, XRP could go lower before ultimately ripping way higher. And people gave him a bunch of crap for it. But he has been proven right to this point. XRP has moved to the downside. In fact, several days or so ago, I made an entire video dedicated almost exclusively to his perspective because it was so rare at that point. Almost nobody was in agreement that you would see the move to the downside. So I dedicated a lot of time to it because I just want you guys to be informed. Here's the bull case. Here's the bear case. You can decide what you think makes sense, what you think is most probable. You guys are intelligent adults. But I wanted to share that. And it's just hard to find those perspectives. And so credit where it's due. It's certainly that the types of levels that he's talking about, we've dropped. We've certainly dropped. But he's still, he's not some troll. He's a member of the XRP community, and he has been for years. In the hardest of times, he was preaching that, we're going to go way higher, and he still believes that. So to answer the question, have you given up on XRP? And this is October 30th, as he was one of the few that was warning XRP was going to drop probably. He said, brother, I'll never give up on XRP. Have I de-risked? Yes. Am I still comfortably positioned from much lower? Yes. Will I purchase more should the asset correct? Absolutely. The only thing that has changed about my $8 to $13 target is time, in my opinion. So that's interesting. He's still calling for upwards of $13 price for XRP this market cycle. It's just that the timing shift. Doesn't that also play into what Raoul Paul and Tech Dev and Julian Bedell have been talking about as far as an extended cycle? He seems to be thinking it's going to go out further, at least. I don't know how far. I haven't seen him talk about that. If he has, I've just missed it, and I don't want to put words in his mouth. But interesting, right? So he's not fearful about any of this. Like nothing's broken with XRP. It's just about what you see in terms of short-term price action for the charts, in terms of what is most probable. Nothing, a big picture, has changed, though, for him. And here's a post from chart analyst Ali Martinez. I shared this yesterday before the market dropped. Here you can see the price XRP was $2.53. Ah, yes, the good old days. Yesterday, literally, $2.53. And he was warning, and he's pretty damn close here. Yesterday morning, he wrote, XRP showing signs of weakness. A retest of $2.25 might be next. Well, we pretty much got that. I mean, Live Coin Watch is showing $2.27, and I'm willing to bet that on some exchanges it was a little bit lower because they're kind of averaging out the data there. So that ended up being correct. Here's a post from chart analyst Tony Severino. XRP monthly LMACD has crossed bearish for the third time ever. The two past bearish crossovers resulted in an 87% and a 71% drawdown after the signal fired. The signal is still unconfirmed, so bulls must push price much higher this month or risk seeing the signal confirm. So this is a rare bearish momentum cross, potentially forming on the XRP monthly chart. The same signal that historically preceded major pullbacks. But again, I reiterate, however, the signal has not confirmed yet. and we're in one of the most pro-liquidity macro environments crypto has ever seen. So, this becomes a moment of market inflection, obviously. It's not like this is a foregone conclusion, and he's not saying that either. Bulls simply need to defend the trend here. That is the case. But that also goes back to this concept of something big's going to happen. Is it going to be a monstrous drop or something, just a crazy rip to the upside ultimately? And so you can see what he's talking about right here with the MACD, currently in the red. But again, we're in the third day of November, and this is the monthly chart here, so it could absolutely flip green. But this is a momentum indicator. So, guys, come to your own conclusions here. I'm just hoping that the analysts who are optimistic for a very green November end up being correct, even if it starts out, like, say the first week or two are pretty choppy or kind of negative. I'm hoping that we gain it all back before the month closes. Let's just say that. Here's a post from Crypto Insight UK. He says, what do you notice about times when XRP funding has been negative on the weekly time frame? Well, historically, when the majority bets against XRP and funding turns negative on the weekly, XRP tends to move higher after. So right now, funding is negative again, meaning traders are leaning short, but that doesn't guarantee anything. But historically, this has been fuel for upside in XRP, not downside. Here's another one from Crypto Insight UK. He says, all I'm going to say is, on November 5th, 2024, XRP started its rally up, hitting $2.90 by December 3rd. All I'm going to say is November 5th is swell, day 2, so Ripple swell, of course. An identical move would take us to $13 by December 3rd. Yes, it's hopium, but why not hope for the simulation? And so, yeah, that's definitely hopium, but I thought I'd just share it anyway, just because, frankly, it would be hilarious if that ends up happening, and then I have to reference this like a month from now. Can you imagine that? I'd be euphoric about that. That'd be wild. So not that this would necessarily unfold quite this way, and he's obviously having a little bit of fun, but the thing is, things they really can happen that fast in crypto. So like you can have this sentiment, and then weeks later, everybody's actually in euphoria. So I don't know if it's going to happen that quickly, but what's interesting is with where the market is right now, It's not unreasonable to think it could. It's just that nobody knows for sure. That's the truth of it. Here's a post from chart analyst Dom. This is an XRP US oil chart, and he says, XRP US oil update. The not ideal scenario looks to have played out here on this pairing. And I'm not going to read through the whole thread, but it's what's on your screen playing out. That's what he was concerned might occur. He says, 3 rejections trying to break back out of this range. It's crunch time where bulls hold this third quartile orange, or we likely make our way back to mid-range. Bullish structure does not come back until price can break over those 3 rejection points. And so you can kind of get the vibe from this. It's another analyst who's like, guys, this is kind of a make or break moment. I've seen that type of sentiment, whether it's worded expressly or implied, from just tons of analysts. This really is a crucial moment. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. And and this is why I got to say this too. Even if we enter a bear market, which I do not believe we're doing now, and we go to the downside, eventually there's going to be a bull market in crypto sometime in the future. XRP won't die. Bitcoin's not dying. Ethereum's not dying. There's no indication that the fundamentals have shifted as in such a way that they go down. It's just normal volatility in crypto, which is to say extreme volatility. Extreme volatility is normal in this asset class and for XRP. So even if that happened, I'm not going to be fearful. I'm just going to keep doing what I do, and I'm going to earn more money. And as I earn more money, I'm going to buy more crypto if that were to be the case. And then eventually there's going to be a bull market. I'm going to sell it for way more than what I paid for it. So it's going to be fine regardless. It just doesn't make sense to be fearful here. Here's a post from Chart Nerd. It says, XRP accumulation in an uptrend points towards continuation. Patience. Although this is the weekly time frame, key monthly moving averages to act as support in this accumulation zone sit between $2.37 and $1.95. So that's certainly a clear recognition that we could, he didn't literally predict it, but he's certainly acknowledging we could go lower. And from what I've seen from him, he doesn't seem to think that would be an indication that higher time frame expectations are broken. You know, I haven't seen anything like that from him. Here's a post from chart analyst Casey Trades warning that XRP could drop between $2.04 and $1.72. And just noting that those are key support levels here, and not thinking it's crazy if that happens. So I'll just say this, like, if Bitcoin's going to crater down further, you better believe XRP and everything else will. But just welcome to crypto. Like, that's just what it is. And, you know, you got to take the good with the bad. That's just how this is. It's not like because you started buying crypto, now with the volatility that obviously comes to the downside with a fair amount of regularity and has for over 16 years, it's not like it just no longer happens because you bought the crypto. No, you're going to have to go through massive drawdowns too. And either you have conviction or you don't. Now, me, I have actual diamond hands. I have figurative diamond hands. And I just refuse to sell. And I feel very safe in that. I have my conviction is my conviction. That's that. So there's no trick to this. There's no trick to me not feeling negative emotions on days like this. It's because it's just that I genuinely believe what I'm saying. Like, I really do believe that the crypto asset class is going to be worth way more in the future. And I'm just going to be here for it, since I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what prices are going to be for anything. I just believe that on the whole, we're going to keep trending to the upside. And so since I genuinely believe that, I sleep easy, despite all of the tremendous, ridiculous volatility that would scare your average person. Here's a post from chart analyst Tara. I don't need to read the whole thing. She's just warning that, for XRP, you could see it drop even down to like $1.88. So I am seeing that type of stuff from multiple analysts. I just thought I'd mention it. None of this is the end of the world, though. Even if this does happen, none of this is the end of the world. I'll say again, XRP has the strongest fundamentals that it has had at any point in its 13-plus year history. So it ain't going away. Whatever happens with the market, the market moves in tandem. But, in moments where there's a risk on appetite, you know where the money's going to flow. It's going to be to utility coins that actually solve problems. Why would XRP not be one of those? It seems very obvious that it is one of those and will continue to be one of those. You just have to have the right investing environment. So you have to have an environment where there's a thirst for risk on assets. And, that's why I keep saying, though, that's why if you just let time pass, eventually you get there. And you don't control that part. Just focus on controlling the part that you can control. You don't control when it happens, but you do control whether or not you have exposure to the market when it happens. That's the part you can control. And so for me, I'm going to make sure I have that damn exposure. That's all I'm saying. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.